Colonel Marcus Reed pressed his palm against the reinforced glass of the NORAD command bunker, watching the amber glow of dawn break over the Colorado mountains. The facility hummed with its usual pre-dawn efficiency, but something felt different today. 23 years in the Air Force had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, every fiber of his being screamed danger. "Sir, we're getting anomalous readings from the Deep Space Array," Lieutenant Saracen called out from her station. "Multiple objects, approximately 12 astronomical units out, moving at, this can't be right. 0.07 C, sir. 7% the speed of light." The command center fell silent except for the persistent hum of machinery. In his peripheral vision, Reed saw General Patricia Hayes emerge from the briefing room, her expression grim. "How many contacts?" Reed asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline beginning to surge through his system. 17 distinct signatures, sir. Largest is approximately 2 kilometers in length. General Hayes stepped forward. "Colonel, initiate Protocol 7. Full spectrum analysis, and get me a direct line to the Pentagon." She paused, looking at the tactical display where 17 red dots crawled steadily toward the center. "And somebody wake up the president." At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her eyes and stared at the data streaming across her monitors. As the lead xenobiologist for NASA's Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program, she had spent 15 years hoping for this moment. Now that it had arrived, all she felt was cold dread settling in her stomach. "The spectral analysis is unlike anything in our database," she said into her secure phone, speaking directly to General Hayes. "The hull composition appears to be some form of metamaterial. It's absorbing and redirecting our radar in ways that shouldn't be physically possible." On her main screen, the Hubble Space Telescope's enhanced images showed the approaching fleet in startling detail. The ships were organic in appearance, their surfaces rippling with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like living tissue. The largest vessel resembled a massive jellyfish, its translucent bell stretching 2 kilometers across, trailing kilometers-long tentacles that sparked with energy. "Doctor, we need to know their intentions," Hayes' voice crackled through the encrypted line. Elena switched to the thermal imaging display, her heart sinking as she processed what she was seeing. "General, I'm detecting massive heat signatures throughout their hulls. These aren't exploration vessels. The energy output suggests weapon systems far beyond our current technology. And General, the smaller craft are launching. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're heading straight for our major population centers." Captain Jake Morrison gripped the controls of his F-35 Lightning II as it screamed through the pre-dawn sky over Nevada. His squadron had been scrambled from Nellis Air Force Base with minimal briefing, intercept unknown aircraft approaching Las Vegas. Through his night vision display, he could see them, dozens of craft that looked like falling stars, but stars that moved with purpose and intelligence. "Control, Phoenix lead. I have visual on multiple bogies. There. Christ, they're not like anything in the manual." The craft were roughly triangular, but their edges seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Attempting radio contact on guard frequency. Static filled his headset before being replaced by something else, a sound like whale song mixed with electronic interference, rising and falling in complex harmonies that made his teeth ache. "Phoenix lead, you are weapons free. Repeat, weapons free." Morrison's targeting computer couldn't seem to lock onto the alien craft. They seemed to exist in multiple positions simultaneously, ghost images overlapping and separating like mirages. He fired anyway, watching his AIM-120 AMRAAM streak toward the nearest target. The missile simply vanished as it entered the alien craft's proximity field, not exploding but ceasing to exist as if it had never been fired at all. The world exploded in blue light. Morrison's F-35 shuddered as an energy beam lanced past his cockpit, close enough that he could smell ozone through his oxygen mask. His instruments went haywire, half his displays flickering to black. "Mayday, Mayday. Phoenix lead is hit. Losing power, going down." The alien ships settled over major cities like mechanical clouds, their undersides glowing with the same bioluminescent patterns Elena had observed from space. From the NORAD command bunker, General Hayes watched satellite feeds showing the descent. Each alien craft was roughly the size of a city block, hovering 200 meters above the urban centers with impossible grace. Every screen in the command center flickered. The displays cleared, then filled with an image that made Hayes' blood run cold. The face that appeared was humanoid but distinctly alien. Pale blue skin stretched over an elongated skull, large black eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and contempt. When it spoke, the words came not through speakers but seemed to resonate directly in their minds, a form of communication that bypassed the ears entirely. People of Earth. I am Commander Zyphex of the Harvest Fleet. Your species has reached the threshold of technological development that threatens the stability of this galactic sector. You have been selected for resource reclamation and population management. General Hayes stepped forward. This is General Patricia Hayes of the United States Air Force. What are your intentions? Your military structures are irrelevant. We have observed your species for 7 of your decades, studying your biology, your psychology, your weaknesses. Earth's biomass and mineral resources will be harvested. Your population will be reduced to sustainable levels and relocated to designated preservation zones. You're talking about genocide, Hayes said, her voice steady despite the implications. We are talking about efficiency. Your species breeds beyond the carrying capacity of your environment. Resistance will result in total sterilization. Compliance will ensure survival for approximately 10% of your current population. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Dr. Michael Torres had been studying extremophiles in the Carlsbad Caverns when the invasion began. Now, 3 days after the aliens had issued their ultimatum, he found himself leading a group of survivors through the extensive cave system that honeycombed the American Southwest. Colonel Reed, who had escaped NORAD's destruction through a service tunnel moments before the facility was vaporized, studied Torres' geological surveys by LED lamplight. The electromagnetic pulses from their ships can't penetrate this deep, Torres explained to the mixed group of military personnel and civilians. The rock provides natural shielding, and the limestone formations create acoustic barriers that seem to confuse their scanning equipment. Doctor, we need to understand their technology if we're going to have any hope of fighting back, Reed said. Torres pulled out a waterproof tablet containing his notes. The aliens appear to be using some form of zero-point energy extraction. Their ships don't show heat signatures consistent with conventional propulsion or power generation. They're drawing power from the fabric of space itself. Unlimited energy, which explains how they can maintain those defensive fields and travel at near light speed. Reed leaned forward. Is there a weakness? I've been monitoring the EM spectrum, and I've noticed fluctuations in their field strength that correspond to certain geological features. Areas with high concentrations of rare earth elements. Specifically, deposits containing significant amounts of yttrium and terbium. Their fields seem to resonate with these materials. Major Sarah Kim, who had joined them after her unit was decimated during the initial resistance attempts, looked up from cleaning her rifle. Are you suggesting these elements could interfere with their technology? I'm suggesting they might represent the only weakness we can exploit. Elena Vasquez had managed to reach the cave network through a series of connections that would have seemed impossible under normal circumstances. Now she sat in a limestone chamber 50 meters underground, surrounded by the strange fellowship that had emerged from humanity's darkest hour. The aliens are methodical, she reported to the assembled group. They're not interested in conquest in the traditional sense. They're treating Earth like a resource to be managed. Harvest Fleet, that's what they called themselves. They're essentially cosmic strip miners. Torres spoke up from where he was analyzing mineral samples. I've been working on the rare earth element theory. There's a significant deposit of yttrium terbium ore about 40 kilometers north of here. If we could create some kind of resonance cascade. You're talking about building a weapon, Major Kim observed. I'm talking about building a tuning fork. The aliens' technology is incredibly sophisticated, but it relies on precise quantum field harmonics. If we could disrupt those harmonics across a wide enough spectrum. Reed stood, his command presence filling the chamber despite their desperate circumstances. How long would you need? Torres looked around at their meager resources, salvaged electronics, camping equipment, and whatever they could scavenge from the surface. With what we have here? Months, maybe years. Then we'd better get started. 6 months had passed since the initial invasion, and the landscape of human civilization had been irrevocably altered. The aliens had established processing centers in former metropolitan areas, their biomechanical structures growing like cancer through the ruins of human architecture. But humanity had proven more adaptable than the Harvest Fleet had anticipated. Captain Morrison, who had survived the crash of his F-35 and spent weeks evading capture, had become something of a legend among the resistance cells. Using a network of abandoned subway tunnels, natural caves, and forgotten bunkers, small groups of humans had begun striking back against the alien infrastructure. The device that Dr. Torres had constructed looked like a cross between a radio telescope and a pipe organ. Built from salvaged electronics, mining equipment, and raw yttrium ore, it occupied an entire cavern in the underground complex that had become humanity's hidden capital. The principle is actually quite simple, Torres explained to the assembled commanders of various resistance cells. Every quantum field has a natural frequency. The aliens' technology relies on maintaining precise harmonic relationships between multiple overlapping fields. If we can broadcast a counter-frequency at sufficient amplitude, you'll collapse their entire network, Elena finished, her eyes wide with understanding. It's like shattering a wineglass with an opera singer's high note, but on a cosmic scale. Reed studied the device, noting the kilometers of crystalline focusing arrays that stretched through connecting caverns. What's the range? Theoretical maximum is about 500 kilometers radius. But the power requirements, we'd need to tap directly into the geothermal activity beneath Yellowstone. The energy release would be equivalent to a moderate volcanic eruption. Major Kim frowned. What are the risks? Best case scenario, we create a dead zone where alien technology simply stops functioning. Their ships fall out of the sky, their processing centers shut down, and we buy ourselves time to mount a real counterattack. And worst case? Torres was quiet for a long moment. Worst case, we trigger a catastrophic resonance cascade that propagates through the Earth's magnetic field. Every piece of electronic technology on the planet stops working. Forever. The cavern fell silent as the implications sank in. They were proposing to risk human civilization itself on a desperate gamble. Reed looked around at the faces surrounding him, soldiers and scientists, mothers and children, the last free representatives of the human species. How long do we have before the aliens complete their initial harvest phase? He asked Elena. Based on their current progress, maybe 2 more months. After that, they'll have established enough infrastructure to make resistance nearly impossible. Reed nodded slowly. Then we don't really have a choice, do we? The preparation took 6 weeks. Resistance cells from across North America converged on the Yellowstone region, traveling through a network of tunnels, abandoned mines, and wilderness routes. Elena had established communication with similar groups on other continents. The news was uniformly grim. The aliens had begun atmospheric modification that was slowly making the air toxic to human life. They're terraforming, Elena reported during the final planning session. If we don't act soon, it won't matter if we destroy their technology. The planet won't be habitable for humans much longer. The attack began at dawn. Above ground, Morrison's pilots engaged the first wave of alien scouts that had detected their energy buildup. The sky filled with impossible geometries as human aircraft danced with alien craft that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Deep below, Torres made his final calculations. Initiating primary resonance in 3, 2, 1. The sound began as something barely perceptible, a deep thrumming that seemed to come from the Earth itself. The crystalline arrays glowed with increasing intensity, and the air in the cavern began to smell of ozone and copper. On the surface, Major Kim watched through binoculars as the nearest alien craft suddenly shuddered in mid-flight. Its smooth, flowing movements became erratic, and the bioluminescent patterns across its hull began to flicker like a dying fluorescent bulb. It's working, she breathed into her radio. The local craft are showing signs of distress. But the aliens were adapting faster than anyone had anticipated. Massive reinforcements began dropping from the motherships in high orbit. The sky darkened with descending craft, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything they had previously encountered. Torres watched his instruments with growing desperation. The resonance cascade was building properly, but it needed more time to reach critical amplitude. "I need another 10 minutes, he announced over the comm system. "You've got maybe 5, Reed replied from his position coordinating the surface defenses. "They're throwing everything they have at us." The battle above the Montana wilderness became a testament to human courage in the face of impossible odds. Morrison's pilots, flying aircraft held together with spare parts and determination, engaged alien craft that could have been built by gods. For every alien ship that fell to Earth, 2 more human aircraft were vaporized by energy weapons. But they held the line. 60 seconds to cascade point, Torres announced. Above them, the mountain itself was under assault. Alien energy weapons carved through solid rock as if it were paper, seeking the source of the interference that was disrupting their technology across an ever-widening radius. The counter on Torres' device showed 30 seconds to critical resonance. Then the cavern's ceiling exploded. The alien craft that broke through the mountain was unlike anything they had seen before, a living ship that seemed to be part animal, part machine, its tentacles reaching down into the cavern like the arms of some cosmic octopus. Energy beams lanced down toward the resonance generator, but Torres had anticipated this final assault. Activating emergency protocols, he shouted over the sound of falling rock and alien weaponry. The crystalline arrays, instead of maintaining their careful harmonic balance, suddenly discharged their entire accumulated energy at once. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The resonance cascade erupted outward at the speed of light, a quantum shockwave that swept across continents in milliseconds. Every alien device within its expanding sphere simply stopped functioning, not destroyed or damaged, but rendered as inert as if someone had thrown a universal off switch. Alien craft fell from the sky like metallic rain. The massive motherships in orbit suddenly found themselves deaf and blind, their sophisticated sensors reduced to expensive decoration. On the surface, processing centers that had been converting human cities into alien infrastructure simply shut down. But the cascade didn't stop there. As Torres had feared, the resonance effect propagated through Earth's magnetic field, creating a feedback loop that swept across the entire planet. Every satellite went dark. Every computer network crashed. Every electronic device more complex than a simple transistor radio simply stopped working. The world went dark. 3 years had passed since the Great Silence, as historians were already calling it. Colonel Reed, now bearing the title of Regional Coordinator for the North American Recovery Zone, stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Communications Center in Colorado Springs. The facility looked nothing like the high-tech NORAD installation it had replaced. Built from salvaged materials and powered by solar panels and water wheels, it represented humanity's new relationship with technology. "The latest reports from overseas are encouraging," Elena said, joining him at the window. She bore new scars from 3 years of hard survival, but her eyes held a brightness that had been absent during the dark days of the invasion. Reed nodded, watching as children played in the valley below, children who had never known a world of smartphones and internet, who thought that books and handwritten letters were the height of communication technology. "What about the aliens?" "Still there, still alive, but effectively neutralized. Our observers report that some of their smaller ships have begun functioning again, but only at a very basic level. It's like they've been reduced to using stone knives and bearskins." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. In destroying the aliens' technological advantage, humanity had also destroyed its own. The world of 2028 looked remarkably similar to the world of 1928. With some notable exceptions. Torres emerged from the communications room, his face bearing the exhaustion that came from trying to rebuild civilization one vacuum tube at a time. "I've got confirmation from the Australian stations. The resonance effect is finally beginning to diminish. We might have basic semiconductor technology back within another 5 years." Reed looked out at the valley, where human children played alongside small groups of alien youngsters, refugees from crashed ships who had been found and cautiously accepted by various communities. The adult aliens remained in isolated camps, too dangerous for integration, but their children were proving remarkably adaptable. "Maybe," Reed said quietly, will have learned something by then. As the sun set over the Colorado mountains, casting long shadows across a world that was slowly healing from the wounds of both invasion and salvation, 3 representatives of a species that had refused to accept extinction made their plans for tomorrow. It would be another day of hard work, incremental progress, and careful hope. But it would be a day when humanity remained free.